I don't mess around with it. Never did before, and hardly see our grandchildren, but that's the way it goes.
How are you feeling?
I'm a little tired now because I'm, after it, to put in the effort to get all this stuff together as much as I thought was important for you guys. But I'll probably be fine. This is my husband Doug. I'd like to introduce him, Doug Johnson. Former alternate tree warden for about 20 years for the town of Camden and the Conservation Commission chair and vice chair for 25 years, most of it as chair. So, yes, we live at. Many of you have moved to Camden Stories. And so Doug and I moved here in the summer of '92 to the corner of Pearl and Park because I saw a little classified ad in the Main Times talking about how we could walk to the park and the Y. We thought, doesn't that sound charming? So we moved there, and about 4 years after renting, we purchased it. But when we moved there, we had no idea that on the property was the largest red oak in Camden. It's very, very huge, and one of the largest in the state, probably 250 years old. Is that right?
Oh, sure.
And happily inhabited by families of squirrels year after year. We're endlessly amusing to watch when they venture out and chase each other around trees like little children, except for the year that the queen moved in and it was a beehive.
Oh.
Yeah. So we weren't expecting to do anything around trees. We did other things when we came here, dug other things, and I had done public relations and advertising recently in Maine, but also, worked for think tanks and big corporations doing projects and all that stuff before. Coming. Hey, you're late. So, no, don't sit there too close for me. Too close. You can. I'm trying to keep the germs. So, anyway, it involved that Doug, the Conservation Commission needed a member, and Doug to the town office to inquire about it. And Bart met with him and immediately scooped him up. That's Bart Wood, the tree warden. Most of you have met Bart over the years, maybe. He's no longer with us, but and it turned out that Camden had a tree program, and Bart's main interest, though we didn't realize it till we talked to Doug, was trees, for the commission to work on trees. And also, as it turned out, there was already a program that the garden club had. Camden Garden Club had planted trees since around the time of the Divine City elms. So anyway, he signed up for the commission, and then a few years after that, in '94, I learned that he had been an arborist in New Jersey, and I thought that seemed like a good, worthwhile thing to do. So we started Tree Keepers. And
What year was that, Nancy?
what?
What year was that?
94. And the only other arborist in the area was John Tooley, who had Northeast Tree at the time. That was it. So, and people at the time, I do remember select board people specifically saying things like, why do we need to talk about trees? Maine's full of trees. Why do we need to protect trees? And, even arborists at the time, John, at one point, told a property owner who wanted to get rid of a beautiful, what was it in Rockport, that wonderful tree near the street? Anyway, she said, sure. I was saying, arborists would tell people, yeah, the tree won't survive anyway. And so if they wanted it down, the opposite of what we do now. So things have changed a lot over the years, but it was a real educational process. And there were people who felt personally about trees, but personally in that they didn't like trees, I'll tell you that, didn't want leaves on their lawn, didn't want to plant shade trees. Beatty well knows about that, because Beatty was one of the active people in town when we moved here. We soon met up. So they have lots of reasons, and that's kind of what I want to talk about today, because the only way to really protect trees is you have to realize that around the issue of trees, it's both personal and it's also highly, highly political. So what helped me through that was the fact that when I was young in Ohio and on the West Coast, I took part in sit-ins. And then, I'm not kidding, marches and political work against the Vietnam War. And then also working for things like prison reform in Rochester, New York, and out in Arizona. So I've been, aside from the work I did to earn a living, these things that were sort of not very popular, and where you had to figure out ways to reach people. And so thinking about coming here today, that's kind of what I wanted to mention to you. Because you have to figure out how to reach people so that they really get it at a gut level. Not so much now, because now nearly everybody knows that we've cut down too many trees. We need trees because of climate control and issues. But still, we still let them be cut down. I mean, look at Route 1 between here and Belfast, for example, which used to be well treed, and now is nearly nude of trees, the whole route. What that means is the people who live on the street are breathing in more pollution. It's affecting all of us, doesn't just stay right there along that street. So NDOT always has ideas for widening the roads. And so that in itself begins to cause more issues as well. So the way that the Tree City program started was Doug was working on the commission. I would help him do things too. MBNA, Bartwood went to MBNA and they gave $50,000, 10,000 each over 5 years to plant and care for trees. And so in 1995, the garden club helped. And I'm going to give you a binder, not today, but I'll give you one that has this stuff in it. The garden club helped because they helped contact people in town, and people could have a tree planted in the right of way for only $5. And all the rest was paid by the town, the club, and mostly MBN. So we made a list of the species people could choose from, and there were 240 some trees planted. The accepted list then, which was the national list for trees, included things like Japanese lilac.
Norway maple.
No. Calorie pear.
Oh.
You want to see the ugliest tree in town right now? It's right next to our property. Just drive up Pearl, and before you get to our property, look to your right, and there is the god-awfulest looking tree. And it's a calorie pear planted that year. And all the others I believe have died, but that one has, and I keep hoping you're to torture you.
It's actually
Because I have to look at it on our windows, looking toward town all the time. But there it is, and if you guys are ever interested, Doug and I could give you a little tour around town of the, the horribles, basically, that are still there. Because
Is it a real pear tree? Does it have pears?
it's a
on it?
type of pear, and it was recommended widely for street tree planting. So it was in the national book that we used, a binder. I have all this stuff, our library is filled with all this tree stuff.
There were two
And-
across the road. Are they gone? Is that
Yeah, we're
something
looking
else
at
now?
it right now.
They're still alive.
Those are the only two still living, and those are the
So this
first
is-
two trees.
These two right here.
Yeah, yeah.
What's wrong with those trees?
Yeah, right there.
You don't like them?
They're considered invasive.
They're slightly different variety for some reason, and
Um,
they flower and beautiful. I mean, the
Rebecca
old-
can tell you, there's all kinds of issues, and also they're invasive exceedingly. And so those were the first two we planted. And there will be a photo in your guidebook I'm going to give you to how to do Arbor Day in Tree City and what the Conservation Commission, the issues, sort of the highlights of the issues over the years. But we were out here planting. My name is not on anything by the way, then, because I'd already, done my thing in life. And also, tree people were men. Bart, wouldn't even look at me when he talked to us. Even when I had my arborist license. And generally speaking, it was the arborist meetings that we would go to where all these guys, and if they'd had any idea it had anything to do with anything, I don't know what would have happened, So I made the ads look really lousy for our business, even though I'd won awards for ads, national awards, and, just kind of crept into the whole thing.
We have sexual harassment training today, just so you know.
What?
We actually, the whole town's having sexual harassment training today. You're not kidding. I'm serious, yeah. I get it at 1 o'clock.
Women are very, doing major work in arboriculture now, climbing trees and everything, but that's how it was then, really was. And so, and even now, still people will ask about Doug, how's the tree business? And, we're getting there. So I just erased my name entirely. So also in 95, Doug and I wrote a grant. It was called America the Beautiful, that Project Canopy. We wrote a $10,000 grant for the Conservation Commission. And in here it says the Conservation Commission wrote the grant. Mostly I wrote the grant. I was already had done a lot of grant writing, and we submitted it to the state and it got approved. And so that's money that went into the Camden Community Forestry Plan. I mean, we didn't get it all, we got a little part of it. And the match for that, though, was the tree inventory, which Bart initiated. And every Sunday, Doug and Bart, Doug being the person who knew trees, and volunteers from the commission would walk the streets of the town and take an inventory of the trees, which included, it was done by street and address. And every tree was measured 4 feet. You all know how to do a tree inventory. You measure 4 feet above the ground, around, and record
I'm on
it.
the breastplate.
The species, the condition. What else? When we recorded, I would go sometimes, they would record whether or not it was a special tree in town, significant. So that was done for every single street tree walking, and written out. I still have it, maybe the town has it. And
We
then
put
they
that on
continued the
the
next year for doing the public parks and properties and the schools. So that then made a match for the grant money, because you have to match it equally. So we wrote the management plan. That's a binder, Allison knows. Did a tree planting, part of that was to put together a tree planting manual, another binder. Trying to think what else. It was quite a bit turned it in, reported to the select board, gave it to the town. I think really it got shelved. And nothing got done about it, except the Conservation Commission did everything. And with that, Doug and I, together with tree keepers, we must have done about 10 different management plans for communities around Maine. And a lot of tree inventories that we would respond. You know, two of us walking on the streets like Arbor was our first big one. Took quite a few days and it was really fun. So Camden, let's see, some of the early issues at Camden, I'm trying to think, because I wanted to tell you that. Well, all these years, up until just maybe 2 years ago, I will tell you that some emotions get involved around trees. People might be jealous of other groups that are working on trees. People who've been working on trees might do everything they can to protect their turf because they think maybe somebody else is trying to take over their program. People want to cut trees so they can have a view of the water, and the more money they have, the people who want to cut trees to see the water, the more money those particular people have, the more they might just decide to go do it because they have a low opinion of the tree warden and rules and things like that. So you're fighting a lot of issues like that. And you need to, so being on the Conservation Commission isn't just doing nice things for trees and planting trees, but really you're the primary people to defend the trees. You absolutely have to. And people who've come through ahead of you have done pretty good things to defend trees, like climbing and sitting in trees. So, you know, think about it. It's taken wild measures. I'll give you a personal example, which is the amphitheater and library park. So there was an issue. Do you remember? It's in the book. There's an article. It was around 2005. A wealthy person had given money so that there could be a study done, a historical study of the trees and the landscapes, those two landscapes. You know that Fletcher Steel is and the Olmsted Road. And this person was president of the Olmsted Society and knew a lot about landscapes and things. So a landscape architect was hired who specialized in historic landscapes, rehabilitation. So rehabilitation of a landscape, I learned, and you may not realize, it can mean removing everything and starting fresh with the original plan, because the landscape has gotten, doesn't look like the original planting anymore, because of course the trees have been growing and developing. And so, and maybe looking overly tall or something like that. So the landscape design person will recommend that. That's what's called rehabilitation. And that was proposed for those parks. Also, there was the most influential person in town for years, and a member of the library board. His idea was to lower the hill so that when the below ground library, you looked out of the doors of the below ground library, you were looking directly at the ocean instead of the hill. The thing is, the hill was historic. It was part of the Olmsted plan. But because this person was very influential, like I said, I would say the most influential person in town, then you had this big conflict, right? And the library board got behind, you know, lowering the hill, and people of the library board, which also is involved in the rehabilitation and they look after the trees. Those are public parks, but they look after and pay for the trees to be maintained in those parks. The town doesn't. And last year, for example, that was nearly $13,000 that they spent taking care of trees, which will be something included in this year's recertification application. That qualifies. Anyway, so the plan was sketched on, out architecturally, and it was going to be voted on by the town to do it or not. And so I tried to think of what might work so people would really get what was going to happen. And what I ended up doing was going down there the morning of the vote very early with lots of yellow flagging tape and the plans, which I sort of put rocks on to open them up. That was horrified, really, I think, on these boulders. And for every tree that was going to come down, I tied a yellow ribbon around it. Then I found out that the person who wanted to lower the hill had gone out there and was untying these. Somebody told him I'd done it. So I had to go back. And also I wrote up this, 2-page thing on this colored paper. This is my favorite paper for these issues. And handed it out to people at the post office and by the grocery store up here and said, before you go vote, would you please go look at the ribbons over there about the trees? So people would really get what was going to happen. So then it got voted down, and the library set up a group then to go through tree by tree, the plan, what were they then going to do? We people who are against the trees coming down attended and sat on the side, and sometimes would be allowed to speak or just spoke. And everybody met like that once a week for months and months. And the end result was people sitting together, it came to an accord. And what you see is what's there now. It would have been a travesty, really, because those trees, many of them still left, came in from the native countryside. They were full-grown trees. I don't know if you knew that. Full-grown. And elms and things. And they figured out how to dig them, put them on ox carts, haul them down to that landscape and plant them. And the work that Mrs. Bach devised employed people who were unemployed during the Depression. So to what end? And you can see the beautiful, like they would say in the rehabilitation program plan, the lovely green screen at the back of the amphitheater. Of course, it's not like that now. That's because the hemlocks were little. So that was part of the justification, to take the old ones out and put in new ones. And that still might need to happen because of oleodelgin and things like that, but it's just a shame to sacrifice trees for such things. I think we know more than that now, but in 2005, not so much. Let's see. Another example I can give you is the Schweber Maple down here, the Mechanic Street parking lot, and it's over there. You know where I mean?
Oh, yeah.
We're on the corner of Mechanic Street,
Where the Mechanic Street makes the turn. Right there, that parking lot has a tree.
Yeah.
Okay, so that tree was planted by the Conservation Commission 2000 in the 1990s, actually. It's in here, so you can see it when I give you the book. But when it was donated by Richard Aronow, owner of Planet, because it reminded him of Brooklyn, LYN, where he grew up. So he wanted to put a tree across some Planet. So we planted it. The first one didn't make it, and we got another one and put it in. And so then the town, not many years ago, Audra was here then.
Oh, yeah, I
It was her
remember.
first year. they drew up somebody drew up a new plan for the parking lot. And it included cutting down the tree. And Allison one day, I didn't know, she called and she said, did you know? So I grabbed out all of my stuff from the year we got Tree City for planting the tree. And, you know, Richard Arnold's whole story about why Glenn wanted it to be that kind of tree and that stuff, and took it to the select board and to Audra. So you see the tree is still there.
It was amazing. It was Richard Bernhardt had called me from the design committee. And he said, you know, I'm really concerned. They're trying to take down this tree and they're saying they're going to replace it with some better trees maybe, but it seems like this one's really old and well established and it's doing well. And they say there's damage to the tree, but I don't think the tree's going to die. And
Where was this one?
it's in we call it the French and Brown parking lot or the 5 and 10 parking lot. It's right at the
Yeah.
It's pretty big.
corner there.
And it's a type of Norway maple.
Yeah, it's not perfect, but
the
it's
thing
like
is,
a
you
rough
know,
environment there. And,
Richard wanted it, and Norway's actually, they survived, don't they, Dee Dee?
It's the purple, it's the purple, people call them the red maples, it's sort of.
Crimson.
Yeah, yeah.
Crimson, they should be called.
yeah.
I don't think they see the way the green ones do.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I asked that question and when they hybridize, the poor purple colored one, when it hybridizes with another Norway maple, it loses that purple color. That's what ends up happening. So the seedlings you see from that one don't have that purple color, so you don't know that the seedlings of that one. But it's still an invasive Norway maple.
I mean, but in the town of downtown Camden, we have a
Right,
hard
it's not a
time
big
getting
deal.
something to grow, so it's gotta.
That's not a bad place because it's not.
So we donated planting the tree, Richard had donated the tree, and the Conservation Commission was down there all the time because there was no grass, nobody would put up a barrier, that was the whole argument. So you're always trying to make sure somehow that the cars didn't ram into it. Then they put the trash can right next to it, which may still be there, and then it was a 6-year battle to get a bench there, which
Mhm.
guys sit on all the time while their wives are, yeah, but they're lucky, they have a bench, believe me.
We got two now.
Two benches. So, you know, it's like the tree lure, so I'm thinking of other things to tell you, the bog natural area.
Oh, yeah.
So the Bog Natural Area is a public space. And how that happened is Philip Carter of New Orleans, who also has a little house on Pearl Street, came to Doug, contacted Doug and said, would the Conservation Commission or the town be interested in buying some more bog property, extending it? And so Doug met with him and then, you know, had several meetings, walked the whole area, and I don't remember all the politics around that, but you know, Philip was willing to sell it to the town for a greatly discounted price. People on the select board said, you know, like, why do we need that? Blah, blah, blah. It was put on the ballot. And so that was the year 2007. The fights about the right of way. So I made up young signs like this, which I just print off my computer on bright colored paper, so to give you ideas. I used to get them laminated at the village shop, pay them. Then Doug would get great steaks and I'd pound them in everywhere around town. So that year there were two which went vote no on the right of way article, whatever it was, and vote yes on the bog article, whatever it was. So they all passed overwhelmingly. Just have to get out there and do your work, or people don't know what's going on. Basically, you know, you have to make a big issue out of it. Now, the right of way, put this here, that was 2006 or so, when the select board, the town decided that it would like to control the rights of way in town. And the select board at the time charged the code enforcement officer at the time to write up this ordinance. And it took control of everything in the right of way, which in Maine is legally a contested area right now. I mean, if the town or the utility needs it for some reason, they can take some of that. But otherwise, it falls to the property owner to take care of stuff that's on that area, except for hazard trees. And the town has never felt, including all across Maine, it's not their direct responsibility to prune the trees or care for the trees. So that's what we're trying to educate people that they should, towns should do now, is think about doing that. Because they're essentially town infrastructure, you could say.
Wouldn't you think now today though would be a good idea to be more involved with controlling the things
No.
that we're putting in the right of way?
No, I don't want to get into that right now, but I'll tell you what happened then.
Yeah.
So then coincidentally, there was a lawyer who was involved with the tree program in Lewiston or Auburn, I think it was. And he developed and proposed such an ordinance statewide, which the Project Canopy people were opposed to. And we were on the Maine, Doug and I served on the Maine Community Forestry Council for years, which is a group of about 6 representatives from across the state who meet with the state officials about tree projects. Anyway, there was a hearing before the committee, forestry committee. And we went down for the hearing, and guess who was there arguing against the loudest against it? Central Maine Power.
I bet.
Yeah.
Baker High. They don't want to have liability for that area. And other communities were there arguing too, you know, not small communities who wouldn't have known any better, but other ones. No, they don't want it. And the way it works now legally is, because I keep track of legal suits, trees in the law and that stuff, you know. So if, for example, somebody trips over a root from the tree it's kind of the right of way, but it's kind of on your property, like say our sugar maple on Pearl Street, and their lawyer will sue the homeowner because they aren't going to get any money from the town. The town isn't liable for that. If it's, you know, a tree that falls on somebody, even communities have been ruled not liable for stuff like that. So then they go after the person. Believe me, this happens. There's all kinds of,
And you think that's a good thing? You want them to go after the person?
oh yeah. Yeah,
See,
I'm just saying, if you
We-
want to
we
know
do
more, I
take
can
care of-
tell you another
well,
time.
I just, before you go on too much about this, I can respect that things may have been very important in the past, but we are in the process right now of proposing such an ordinance for reasons that you, I believe, strongly agree with. The only way that we've been able to plant some of these trees or to assure people and make an argument for the trees is that the homeowners are not responsible for them. So the town absolutely goes out now and does pruning. Because if you tell people that we're planting a tree that there is going to forever be a liability to them, that is insurmountable in many ways.
It's true, it's true. I don't want to get
So-
into that because I have so many things to go on about.
I don't want you to
If you'll
campaign
notice,
against that for
what I did
June.
that year was, I made up these posters. And we went out and put reflectors in that indicate the end of the right of way. And it prints the rights of way width. So Chestnut Street is 66 feet wide, which, as you can see here, goes right up to people's front doors. So that would mean that then that's the right of way for those streets. I have a list of the rights of way here, an old list, but they haven't changed. There's some new roads, but you should all familiarize yourself with that as part of what you do, because Washington Street, 66 feet, and see where it comes. Trim 49 and a half. here for you. So these were laid out originally as 3, 4, and 5 rod roads, which is the footage. So, anyway, that was the issue. And that then was defeated. Still, and the way it was always worked, planting was people would be asked, do they want to have trees planted? Because you just don't want bad relations with somebody by putting something in that they don't
The
have.
thing is, though, if you were gonna put a sidewalk in and it's in the right of way, the town has the authority.
That's different. Like I said, if the town has a good reason for something, or they have to use, tunnel in for utilities or anything like that, that's what the right of way area is. It's an area legally too that can be, if the entity needs it, then they can use it for that purpose.
Part of the issue that's going on right now, and may not be aware of this, is that a utility can come into the state or the town. And they can pretty much, like a gas utility, they can come in and say, we want to put a gas line right through this location. It's a right of way. And without an ordinance that regulates what utilities can do, you have no teeth in anything. They can come in and pretty much do whatever they want, have something on the books. So the other thing is it protects the faulty installation of utilities, sewer lines. The water company comes in, they do a lot of work that can be shoddy. It puts protection in the town's biggest investment, which is its road and infrastructure. If you don't have an ordinance protecting that, you're blowing in the wind. They can come in right now, like with a.
They were gonna bring in natural gas and just tear all of our
Yeah,
roads up.
that's
We had
part of the
no,
issue.
we had no way to stop it.
We have nothing that we can do. They can put in underground fiber. Right where the Schledler Maple is in the corner there, we just paved that road and paid a lot of money to have that all done. We had, we're gonna get it fixed, but a road opening / right of way ordinance would have made it required. We had a water main right there to go and replace the huge investment we just made into that. Right now, the only teeth I really have is my influence over them to do it. I don't have an ordinance.
Hey, Dave,
Regulates.
I'm sorry, but do you just mind if I do my program? Because
Yeah.
it's just today and I'm trying to.
That's just a really important thing, though.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I wanted you to know when Tree City started the program, and that was in 1995, when we were first named the Tree City. And so the way it happened is when we were standing right out here with Dave Spicer, the then community forestry director, it's called Project Canopy now. He said, told me about the program. They were planting these trees, and I said, that sounds interesting. How do we do it? So I got the information. Bart worked with the town to develop a tree ordinance, which we needed. You have to have an officially proclaimed Arbor Day and celebrate it. You need a tree ordinance. You need to have a tree warden or a tree department or a tree board to administer the program. And you need to spend at least $2 per capita on your tree program. And then submit your paperwork to the Arbor Day Foundation. So it was really exciting for me when we became a Tree City. And so since then, we've been a Tree City every year until the COVID pause for a couple of years. And now we will be again. One thing that I did in the early years was I put in just paper ads that would announce Arbor Day festivities. And I did it I would put in the ad Belfast, Camden, Thomaston, which were the 3 communities nearby that had Arbor Day ceremonies then. And those are some things that you can all think of too, is to get companies in the area to start doing more. There's no reason why they can't step up. They make quite a bit of money from the tourists and from the trees. And yet I really haven't seen anybody asking them to do that. We've donated substantial amounts of tree work to the area, to Vesper, to the library parks and giving trees to the town over the years, and that should be part of people's responsibility of other businesses that want to do business here, in my opinion. And so I think you could think about working on that. In the book I give you, you'll find tree preservation during road construction specifications. That's because DOT decided they were going to work on Route 1 right through the historic district. And Camden didn't want to sign the consent agreement until they got some agreement from DOT about preserving trees and replanting trees. And so Roberta Smith was the select board, was the manager of this town then, and she refused to sign it. The select board was sort of willing to hold off. And so that project didn't happen for a while. And then when we went down to receive the Tree City Award that year, sometimes the governor used to give them. So Angus King was the governor. And when I got up to accept the award, I said, it's too bad on the one hand that here we're being rewarded for communities for taking care of trees, tree cities, and on the other hand, the Department of Transportation is working to cut all the trees. We have this situation in Camden. And I'll never know if it made a difference, but by the end of the week, DOT signed that consent agreement. And it meant that they needed to follow these tree preservation specifications while they did their road construction. So we wrote the specs, and if any issues come up, these are still good specs for you guys to refer to. And then, of course, in addition to that, there was a whole group of people who protested. Susan Beebe, other people who lived in town, huge groups of them would gather on the green and do a march with signs about how the DOT was destroying the community, things like that. And it really made a big difference. Didn't make a difference on the road through Thomaston, however, they did, but it did in Camden. People hate to mess with Camden. Here's in the binder would be a very old, but still valid for the streets that are listed. And this tells you what the rights of way are for every street. It's good to know, right? Who knew that these were 66 feet right to people's front yards? And actually, if people are moving here to buy an expensive house in Chestnut, it might make a difference to them if they knew that. Do they want the town or anybody messing around in their front yard? I don't know. It's an issue to think about. In 2011 or 2010-11, that time frame, the town decided to do a ski trail on Ragged Mountain. So the Conservation Commission got involved in that. David Curran was the then chair. He called Doug. They went for a hike up Ragged Mountain to look at the proposed route. What it was going to do was, the way it was planned, it was going to cut down probably a lot of significant trees and create serious erosion problems right into the lake at the bottom, right? So what they decided to do was to do a significant tree inventory for the ski trail on Ragged Mountain. So it's tree by tree, describes the methodology, and then there are all these trees, 264 trees listed and numbered, and that should be preserved. So then they went ahead with that project and didn't pay too much attention to the work they done, and you know what happened within a few years. There were a few more memos I have in here through the next couple of years, written by the Conservation Commission, either to the town or to Landon Fake, who was director then of the snowball area, about the problem. Nobody paid any attention. I taped the meeting when Doug went before the planning commission about it. The director of snowball, Doug. So Doug presented again all this information. This was toward the end when there were starting to be issues. And, you know, the director of the snowball and, you know, his thing, on. And the planning commission didn't do anything. That project, in large part, in my personal opinion, went wrong because originally at the very beginning, the town should have agreed, the select board that is, to hire somebody to manage it who knew what they were doing. It was too much of a project for the town, too much for the snowball people. They weren't equipped for it. And so, but instead it was decided not to spend that money. And so then, you know, some people got sacrificed because of it. Probably there were other things, but the scapegoats were a town manager and the director of the snowball. And I'm just not sure that was called for. The select board, the Conservation Commission sponsored the Roast Farm tour, a special tour that they had before when they had a conservation easement on it. So, and also was responsible for the conservation easement on the Bog Natural area. Lighthouse Lookout, it's not called that now, but it was originally, even the signs of Lighthouse Lookout. So that was a project of Sid Lindsley, who was the select board chair when we first moved to town. And Sid knew that that was a town right-of-way area. And he wanted to see that. He said, that's a great view, you know, we should open that up. So that became controversial because if you're facing the lighthouse, the person here who lived here, that White House near the road, her name was Jones. And over here were the Scullys. And here was the right of way. And the barn of Jones shed was partly in the right of way. And nobody had ever been going down there except a few kids, so it was all quiet. And so when the neighbors found out that they were interested in, you know, the commission was interested in just clearing a little trail to go down there so people could go down there and sit, they had a fit. Meanwhile, there's a very huge ash tree down there, which was not sound. And John Tooley had to go in and cut it. And the ash tree fell off its stump like this. So that provided the perfect place for the people who used to go down there anyway, to go down there and sit and talk. So Mrs. Jones hired an attorney in town. And the attorney started in on Roger Moody and Doug, who would get calls being really pissed that this was anything was going to be done by the Conservation Commission. And didn't like the talking, didn't want anything. Well, then it was found out that her shed was in the right of way, so that gave the town a little more leverage. Also, it was very clear that it was town property going right down. That right of way is wider than any in town, the Beacon Street one. It's like 80 feet, I think.
Yeah,
So,
I just wrote about that actually.
yeah, it's down the hill, it's huge. And the story we heard back then, though, how could it be possible, was that it was that wide because they would build schooners up and haul them by ox down. But then you come to that cliff, and so unless, who knows what happens then, I don't quite get it. In any event, so this fight went on, and finally the town one was able to go down there and make a little trail like you see now. And at that time, Randy Stearns had started in the 90s a tree nursery, which you may or may not have, I don't know, but that was very nice. And that was down by the sewage treatment plant. There was a nice space there, and he and his son would go there and work every weekend. And so we took out the trees that were there. They were planted down there on the right of way, and it was called Lighthouse Lookout because that's what Sid wanted it to be called. And the sign was there. Meanwhile, the log was down there, and she wanted the log removed. And through the lawyer, an agreement was made. Get this, Solomon, right? Cut the log in half. Literally. So she agreed it would be okay if it was only half the length. And it was, I mean, big. Half of it was huge. So then I said to Doug, well, what's going to happen to the rest of it? And he didn't know. I said, well, if that log has to go, I ran it. So we hired horses to go in there in the wintertime and twitch it out.
Horses?
Yes, whose horses were they?
John Hookson.
From the ligament. So we were out there on this perfectly, oh, you should see the photos. Blue sky day with a lighthouse here and the snow in the ground, the ocean blue, and he pulls up in the road and bum, 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 the houses start backing out of the trailer, and they're shaking the ground. And they're all, they have their bells on, everything, all the regalia. And so down they come, these huge things down, and they chain up the log and pull it up. I mean, it was really something that huffing in the air and everything, and hauling this log up and put it over in the gully across the street there for us to come and get. So,
Do you have any pictures of this?
yeah, somewhere. I
Oh
do.
my
It was
gosh,
really
Nancy.
something. It's one of those beautiful things I ever saw. It's one of my better ideas. So anyway, if we had town permission from Roger Moody, of course. So there was a law, and about the time that we were gonna have somebody come who could winch it onto a truck and bring it, I went to him, and the log was missing. And I came back to town, and I walked into Roger Moody's office and said, Roger, where's my log? And so he called around, and it turned out that the guys at Public Works had a couple of guys who figured nobody wanted it. And he said, the Public Works knows where it is. So I went down there, where's my log? And he said, oh, this guy had it in his dooryard, and this guy cut it up for wood. Right. I said, that's my log. So we did get it, became a great home, home for leaf cutter bees and things. We had it for 20 years maybe. Yeah.
Oh,
So, anyway,
Yeah,
that's a
those
legal
pictures.
fight for the town over that. Can you think of any other? Well, then there's the whole Riverwalk thing, Tanner and the Riverwalk. So the Conservation Commission from the very earliest days advocated for preserving the pin oaks along the street and having a walk along the river. And would write letters periodically in the paper. Karen Rector on Pearl Street was very involved. And Jean Muleshofer, another Pearl Street person. Everybody, we were all involved back then. And so the town was, against it. The select board, they just didn't want it. They wanted to be able to do what they wanted with the whole property and sell it to somebody. And who would want it if they didn't have the riverfront access? So a group of us got together, some Conservation Commission people, some not, and met week after week after week, figure out what to do. We brought it before the select board. they were completely against it, everybody. Then we talked to an attorney, gave us free advice. He's actually a former town attorney. And he wrote up the couple referendums for us. And we were very smart because one referendum was to protect the area, and I had inserted within a certain distance from the top of the bank. You know, so the banky roads still, you've got your distance. And the other referendum was to protect the whole Riverwalk with a conservation easement, because otherwise we knew the select board would sell it away, get rid of it, paid no attention. So then we brought those two before the select board, and they just thought it was ridiculous. And especially they chided us for wanting to have a conservation easement. I mean, don't you trust the town and all that stuff we listened to? So then we got a petition, which is how things have to happen a lot of times. So we just did, we got signatures on the petitions, put them on, then they said, no, we aren't going to put them on the ballot, even though you have valid signatures. So that really made me mad. You know, it was just refusing, but then to say, we are going to let your valid things be on the ballot. That's one of my undemocratic kind of issues. So I hired a lawyer from Portland who kind of trumped the lawyer the town has, and you know, we had to go after it and over and fought it to get it on the ballot, and then it was overwhelmingly approved. But still, when they advertised it, the land, the town for 3 years afterward advertised the sale of the entire parcel. This is by acreage, free land for jobs, the entire parcel, not the parcel less the Riverwalk. So it's eternal vigilance. It really is. It's not just, you know, doing nice things. But that's a great thing to do too. We had some nice surprises over the years. Back in January, February 1999, the Arbor Day Foundation put us in their little pamphlet, which goes to like 1 million people worldwide. They said, in the state of Maine, where the number of Tree City USA communities has more than doubled in the past 4 years, Camden exemplifies what is possible. Blah, blah, blah. Talked about our street trees and our long range plan, the little nursery. So that was nice. And we were the 8th to become a tree city in the state, the 8th city. And then I subscribe to this. I hope you guys subscribe to this. You need to get the Tree City. You need to subscribe to Friends of Tree City. These are invaluable. You can haul them out to use for lots of projects. But in 2012, here we are on the cover of Arbor Day. That's Camden, guys. Camden, Maine, a 17-year Tree City USA community, boasts beautiful fall color. That was a total surprise. So very nice recognition. Let's see, I think you all know about this Trees and Treescapes tour that I did. Brenda, you know this brochure. Are you familiar with it? Yeah, so around 2012, I decided I would like to do something like this, walking tour. At the time, I conceived of there being 3 different sections, and I actually wrote all 3. But then, you know, I did this just as in volunteer time, and tree keepers supported it financially. And so I was just tired. I had to get back to business and I get these projects through. So I didn't get to the other 2 things. And there was some health issue too, I think, but anyway, I'll pass these out if you don't have them, if anyone wants one. Yeah,
Please.
okay, so I'll leave these here. And, so that was nice, that was for our 23rd year, I did that, that was our big deal. And, here you can see that the 14th one celebrates the signing of the conservation easement for the Riverwalk. And, this was a celebration when we honored Jean Yulshofer, Scott Dickerson, and that was at the Magonific area. This also was there. Bridget Schneller, longtime employee of ours who loves trees and is now the tree warden in Robin.
Oh,
He's been the tree warden for about 5 years.
oh, well, COVID and.
Anyway, he loves to raise his trees from seeds, and so he planted a lot of trees in the Riverwalk area. And Tree Keepers also has donated a fair number of amelanchers that are down there along the river. So that was this year, and, you know, I don't know, you can see the various things, and then in in 2019, I got a call from Jan Santero, who's the director, to say that she thought it'd be nice to have the celebration, the statewide celebration in Camden. So that was a real honor. And that year, instead of just organizing our little program, I organized the statewide one.
That one was wonderful.
Oh, thanks.
That was so great.
It was great. Everybody came. You know, people really turned out for it.
Oh, yeah.
It's in the library. I was very proud. It was a beautiful place to have it. We left the library and took care of those trees. So,
And Audra and I adopted our tree that you.
Yes.
Responsible for.
yes, and this shows the very first, get a chance to see this. This is our first Arbor Day. Phoebe's here. We were all young. Oh, this is the 24th year, but this is 1994. Yeah.
Can you hold that up again for a second?
Hmm?
Can I take a picture of you doing that?
Don't get me in it, down, send down.
Oh, they're gonna be in
And it turned out that year that 2019, they gave us the statewide champions for community forestry awards. That was wonderful. Yeah. So these are things I want to just tell you about. First of all, here is a list from you of all of the library trees.
Thank you.
With a reminder, they do their tree program. Now, they only plant maybe 6 trees, but it's really important to them. And they have had proprietary feelings about the tree program because they were the ones primarily doing it, except for the year when I'm being 89. And so
Around the whole town, around library would manage tree planting across the whole town,
Garden Club.
garden club, but, okay,
kindergarten club.
garden club.
Their trees, yeah. So it's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. The town pays 1/3 is how it always was. They pay 1/3, the homeowner pays 1/3. And they put ads in the paper and press releases that it's time to order trees. And so people could order and have street trees planted at not too much money, certain, from a list. So this is where turf comes in because I have no idea. Tree City is an inclusive program. Anything the community does, it's all part of it. I'm just finishing it up now a little late because I've had COVID, but it includes everything. It includes the money the library spends. It includes volunteer time, all the volunteer time you guys spend. I've gotten those hours. You get quite a bit for that, by the way, almost $30 an hour credited. So it's, and donations, people who make donations. Dave came in and he's completely transformed the tree program because he has such enthusiasm. He's wanted to plant all these trees this year. So every once in a while, there comes this big infusion of energy, and it's amazing to me. It's a wonderful thing he's done and is doing, and you guys reconstituted as a commission. That's really important. But
You mentioned, at the beginning, maybe some emotions that come with trees and programs. Is being a new member of the community is what we're doing with town with the tree program, competing with the garden club in a way, or
it's,
is
they
that,
saw it that way.
they did, really?
Yeah, they saw it that way for years, and so
Are they
except
now?
for the first year when they came to the program, then they started not being involved, and I didn't know what was going on. And then realized that they were kind of resentful because they said, we are the program. And even in some of their publicity in the paper, they would say that. And once I saw a woman who was active in the garden club had died, and her obituary in the Camden Herald that said she had started the Tree City program back in, I don't know, the 1980s or 70s or something. See, so that made it difficult over the years, many years, decades, to move the program as much forward as it could have been. Because I wanted to have everybody happily, all the organizations happily involved. And there was some resistance going on just for that reason. So sometimes you
That's
do.
not the whole garden club, that's just a couple people. That's not the whole garden club, that's just a couple people.
No, it was way back, but it's not now.
Right. So
Yeah.
I'm worried about.
What's happened is now, I think it was after 2019, it just began to change.
Okay.
But it was kind of true. And when we started, when Doug joined the Conservation Commission, Bart said, "Be careful of the garden club," but he never told me that, so that's just how it was.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I would order things from the Arbor Day people, like the tree board book. This is mine, but you know, you have to get these things, and this is a good book, native trees. And the Tree City things, I'm giving you the flags, 2 flags today. There are more. Just have them flown as many places as you can. I brought some examples of reports. I've done one for every year, but you don't have time. So this is how to do the procedure initially to do Arbor Day and the Tree City thing. Make sure you qualify by doing the Arbor Day. It tells you step by step how to do it. And it will be in the binder I have over to you, and I'm putting it together. But I'd like you to, I'll take a look at it and decide who's going to do these things. And be sure to invite us to come.
I have a
So,
question, just to, sort of logistical. So thank you so much for this presentation, first of all, and what you have done so much over the years for the trees in the town and for the quality of life and air in our community. So thank you. I'm curious with the Tree City designation, are we currently designated? Yes, still, like we're valid, our annual, right now, are we a Tree City?
We're currently designated.
Okay, and
Yeah.
is there a specific, because I did some research on the Tree City USA website and it wasn't clear once you've applied what you do. Is there a specific, and maybe it's on that yellow sheet that I can't see, set of steps that Arbor Day Foundation provides that you have to do each year, or is it a 5-year renewal? What's that piece of it?
Were you here at the beginning? That was the first thing I said.
Oh, I didn't hear
I think
that. I'm
I'm-
sorry. I was here.
You were here? I think you were.
I was,
on.
sorry.
I'll take a picture of this for you, Samantha. This
Thank
sheet
you.
Here.
That'd be
Yes.
great. Thank you.
there's 4 standards that you have to meet. You have to
Oh, I
have-
know the four, yes, I'm aware of the 4 standards. I heard that and I've read that. It's just, do you have to, is there a report you file that you have to file every year, or what do you actually? Is there online,
we-
like a, yeah,
Yeah, so we didn't have it for a couple of years in file. I was hoping someone would take over from me. That
Sure.
didn't happen. We had COVID. It was completely suspended for 1 or 2 years because of COVID. And so Jan Santerre and actually the officials at the Arbor Day Foundation, she got in touch with them, and we are still a tree city in good standing,
mhm,
and can therefore also apply for a growth award this year.
great. Yeah, so
Yeah.
this is all totally makes sense what's on the yellow sheet. Thank you, Allison, for sending that. I guess what I was confused about is on the Tree City USA website, there's nothing clear about an annual report. It's just how you become one in the first place. And now I see on your yellow sheet, it talks about the state's Project Canopy Director. Is that who the report goes to?
The Tree City application checklist is right here. Can you see this? So it's all
Yes.
listed right. And everything,
Yes.
and it's on the website. So if you look there on the website for the Arbor Day Foundation, I don't see how you can miss it. It's on the website.
No, okay, so
Well,
that's just, I see. So you have to apply to become a Tree City every year. Is that what you're saying?
You apply to be recertified.
Okay, so you have to do the same process annually.
Why don't you talk about that later on yourselves?
Yeah, because we have a pretty.
I don't want to
full
hold
agenda
anyone up.
after.
Yes.
So, thank you so much
You're
for your
welcome.
time and your dedication and, yeah, your
You're welcome.
expertise
Are you
and
still doing?
everything.
What?
Are you still?
It's a self-guided tour,
Oh, self, okay, perfect.
but you know, if people wanted one, we
Do you
could
keep
leave
it
one.
in the chamber? Where do you? keep
They're
it?
down at the chamber, yeah. I also have these,
Nice.
which Jan Santerre sent me. I have a big box book and took them to the Seafair, so
Oh, awesome.
they could be
Great.
passed out in the summer, and I suggest you guys could do the same thing.
Yeah,
But
no,
I'll leave these with you. And the flags. So the flags get flown over the town office, and anybody else will have them. And, you know, the town previously had a banner ordinance, so they wouldn't allow this flag to be flown for more than a week. But I've since heard people say kind of poo-poo that, so do what you can with flags. I have more than these, and because we get one every year. And it'd be nice to see them over the schools.
For the last year's Arbor Day, the tree planting, the 3, the
Yeah.
cherry, what did we plant there?
crab apple.
Crab apples.
Yeah,
The one of them in the middle was severed,
no, there's 3 Donald Lyman crab apples
but one of them is
that we
dead,
still,
like
that
totally.
we donated and planted last year.
One of them
tree
is,
keepers.
and it maybe a,
It's one of the cherry trees that,
oh,
and
Oh.
those 2 were put in later by Dave.
okay.
And,
So that's something that Dave.
and Doug took
I
a
like Dave.
look at it, so the minute I saw him down, I asked him to, and Doug said it looked like there was some rot in the trunk of the one that,
Oh, so
and then
it's,
the wind came that day with a big storm and over
It's
it went, yeah.
okay,
Awesome.
we need to replace it.
Mhm.
Well, thanks
We need to
again.
replace
Appreciate it, and we will do our best to continue this program. I think that's-
Right. I'll give you more, you know, copy of the binder than I have with the information I'll pass it on, but for now you have enough there to know what you have to do to make sure that Arbor Day gets celebrated.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Do you normally send in a hard copy of the report or
This
exclusively,
year I'm
or
doing my copy.
it would be great to see, I don't know that will you be able to at some point leave us with like a sample
Oh,
of the
yeah,
actual report?
not to sample, but it's gonna have this, in addition to this will be in the binder you get, and also all the details of all of everything to include,
Okay,
yeah, it's a lot.
I bet.
And it's not necessary. All you have to do is spend $2 a capita, per capita or more, but it's kind of fun to include everything
Oh, yeah.
and qualify for a growth award. Yeah, sure. And thank you, everybody.
Well, don't mind us, we're gonna keep them
Glad you're taking over meetings. Looks like a big group.
So we'll see how we can just kind of tighten the timeline a little bit and keep things rolling. So the next on the agenda is the select board liaison updates. Are there, well, there's stuff going on in the town, but anything in particular we should know about?
There's a planning board public hearing tonight about, it's the ongoing series of meetings about the Springbrook development. One of the things that's being requested is a waiver of the 75-foot setback requirements from Springbrook. And in the future, I think it would be good for the Conservation Commission to be a little bit more actively involved. One of the things that did happen is that the planning board exercised their right to request additional technical review of the stormwater plan there. And
I'm aware of that.
yeah, and so it was is it the Cumberland?
Cumberland County Soil Water Conservation District, there is a long time registered engineer on board and who looks obviously with a keen eye towards conservation issues. I just got his 2 updated reports in email today. But the first review that I saw was extremely comprehensive. So I don't think he's missing too many pieces there.
Yeah.
Can't say the politics of the ordinance, but in terms of what he's looking at, he's being pretty.
Yeah, he's not looked at that from, first of all, yeah, it was the first time I've seen something like that. And it was just such a breath of fresh air to see a professional go through a plan and point out things that the planning board should be looking at, that there's really no chance on a lot of this stuff. There's just no chance that the average, volunteer planning board member is going to be able to catch all of it. So that was, I don't know what you're talking about with multiple reports because I've only seen one.
That they just popped up today.
Oh,
Well,
about this site?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so that would be something
It
that's
will be,
like,
it should be presented, and it would be emailed to.
yeah, so hopefully they're not going to vote to approve that tonight.
They should have opportunity to review this before, because there's 4 reports.
Does it discuss the setback? Because okay. In the first report,
This is just download into your brain.
Yeah. Like, Chris, send me information. No, yeah, so I just got it.
well, so that would be important information to bring up at for somebody to hopefully bring up at the public hearing that I can't go to unfortunately tonight. But anyway, that is a pretty significant thing. If they approve the setback waiver tonight, then they just, they can't go back on that part of it. So anyway, that's good to know. Would you mind just sending me the whatever it is that you just saw? So that's just ties in, following along with that as much as possible. And these types of things would be good. I thought it was interesting when Nancy mentioned the that she pushed for the easement for the Riverwalk to start at the bank and be a certain distance from the bank rather than a certain distance from normally with streams, what it is the normal high water mark. And then there's a tendency to take the normal high water mark from like the USGS charts or whatever, and it's like whatever is written there, but all streams move over time. And so whatever is being used as the normal high water mark for Springbrook, when you consider a massive eroding bank that goes like this, and if you're going to get 75 feet from that, it just makes a huge difference whether you go from the top of the bank or from whatever is determined to be the normal high water mark. So anyway, I think that the way that the Conservation Commission could make a difference in much the same way with the discussion about peers is just to push for, you know, professional, high-level professional
Third
review.
party review.
Right.
Yeah.
And this thing that the, was it the Cumberland, what's it called?
Soil water conservation.
Right.
District,
And it was really exciting to see that because it was just very professional. And we could allocate more funds in the future to actually have these people. I don't know that they did a site visit, or if they gained all, did it?
Yeah, well, the idea is that it has been proposed that as part of this review, you know, that there will be site visits through construction. I don't know how.
Well, site visits through construction, that means it gets approved. So
Well, assuming
and
but like,
I would like somebody to, before they approve this road waiver. And it seems like this organization would be uniquely capable, maybe in concert with local partners or,
yeah, no,
whatever,
that's the
but-
plan, yeah.
but right now that's not the plan. Because tonight they have a public hearing to approve the setback waiver.
Which is a shame,
But that, you know, so what I would hope is that they, since the planning board did their site walk when it was completely covered in snow, that the site walk should be completed at a time more like this. And that would be a perfect opportunity to also include
Chris.
Chris. So anyway, that's that.
Okay. Well, I have forwarded, said information and responses to you, so,
Thanks.
so again, I haven't really looked at it myself, so I can't really say what it says, but it is, it'll be part of the record, and I'll make sure that Shelley and, Jeremy have it present. Somebody has to be there, right? One of them will be at the planning board meeting tonight, I would assume.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so,
I gotta call my son, he's at home, so.
okay. Tweak this lineup because Dave just stepped out. So we're gonna look at town department, board committee updates. Does anybody have any updates regarding the river, the Megatucket River, the water quality panel, for the working group? Anything to highlight there? I know that their website is pretty active and just something that we wanted to stay abreast of as.
I watched them last meeting. They're really well done, only like 90 minutes. They're really efficient. So if you can watch reruns of it, I highly recommend people stay on top of that if they can. It's not no long-winded, no chit chat. It's just like, very, you could be, I just think about making dinner and it's like,
You can listen to it, kind of thing, podcast, so to speak.
yeah, and occasionally there's like, as you see in the chart, it's, oh, yeah, but I would able to do that, but you can listen to it, oh, that's great, so. They're doing a great job. I don't know if you guys also heard, if you attended or watched the entire board meeting, but also, there's all this ongoing thing about the dam, Montgomery Dam and stuff like that, and the main complaint is that the mill pond, which is the water behind the dam, keeps going lower and lower. And they keep blaming it on the fact that they need a new gate. And in reality, they just found out that there was investigated down there and that there was a 12-inch pipe. I mean, that's 12-inch diameter,
Not small.
8 pipe. That belongs to the owner of the buildings, the Anthony Montgomery, that has eroded over the years. And it's from way, probably a couple hundred years old. And that's what's pouring all the water. Leaking all the water. It's all the responsibility of this privately owned road pipe. It's all in the board meeting. If you watch this board meeting, the sound is not good, but and there's a long part of the beginning of the board meeting, which is all about the people talking about maybe having a marijuana store town or whatever. So that goes on. That's after that, most people have left, but it's very interesting.
So I was wondering if that meeting continued because that was so
Oh, it did.
long.
It
So,
did.
because there was 2 parts.
I just looked over that part because I kind of care about it, but, and my husband might feel me, but, But after that meeting, they, approved some store or something like that, and then some license, and then they went in about that, and it was like, wow. It's major news, I'm surprised it's not in the paper, but,
Yeah.
I mean, 12-inch diameter pipe, which runs almost the whole length of, it's from like, over the course of 4 of the buildings. So,
Yes.
it's a big update in my mind.
So, and then with that, did they decide to do a workshop on peers in that meeting as well? I know it was on the agenda, but. was that
I
something that-
didn't stay to the very, very end.
Okay, so I'll have to- does anyone know that? Did they-
I have not heard. from
Okay,
her.
I wanted to ask Allison. Yeah.
Yeah, we can
You can go to
circle
the
back.
meeting, but actually, no, they did not. I did see the end, and they had already extended how long the meeting went on,
Yeah,
and so they stopped after
They
that,
take-
okay.
because they kept, it was so much.
It was a long
It
meeting.
was a long meeting, yeah.
All right, so again, no Dave, so no public works update as yet, so we will turn it to you, Sam, and ask you can give us a quick update on the Camden Rockport Sustainability Committee.
Yeah, so I'll make it a lot quicker than originally intended. I went to my first meeting as a liaison to the school district sustainability committee, which is a group of representatives from each of the schools, Camden Rockport Elementary, Camden Rockport Middle, and then the high school, and also at least one school board member and people in the administration. And I was mostly a passive observer since it was my first meeting, just getting a sense of the dynamics of the group. And part of why I hadn't gotten to go to a meeting until now is because there hadn't been one since November. So it seems like they're not on a totally regular meeting schedule yet, but I think they plan to do another meeting before the summer, which I'm happy about. The 2 primary focuses at this meeting were the 4-year strategic planning process the school's going through right now, and this group was talking about the sustainability section of those strategic plans, and so that was interesting, and I provided some input there. And also there's a some sort of dashboard tool that they're looking at using to track their sustainability efforts across the schools, and so there was discussion about how to learn how to use it, whether to use it, what it does, what to track, who will do it, and who are we sharing information with. And so, some of the issue is about just how to let people know what they're working on, and also how to quantify what is being done at the schools in a meaningful way for the students, so they understand why they're using this share basket to eliminate food waste at lunch, or why they compost, and how much trash has been reduced going out of the school since they started composting. So those are the primary issues there. And I will report after the next meeting. It was really great to be there, and I'm excited. Our school district's very committed to these issues.
Excellent, thank you.
Hey,
Could I?
can I ask?
Yeah.
I went to the hatchery.
Oh,
with you.
yeah.
It was amazing, and I would just echo, where to start? It was so inspirational of what the students, and what Danny Solomon is doing, and how they're, riding second and third lives to pallets, and, they're seeing the effect of what they're removing from our land, not really, what's not going into our landfill by deconstructing and reuse and repurposing materials. And the attendance the room was full, and,
That's awesome.
the presentation couldn't have been any better, in my opinion. And the questions afterwards in the community seemed to be oriented to, like, how can the community help and in some way, like, capitalize from this, because the people started to see the business opportunity of
Mhm.
deconstruction. That's how I interpreted it. Now, when I left that, I thought that, and kind of thinking back on it, I think that it's hard not to see that, how much a old barn board is worth, right? Like that, or that, but the school, in my opinion, is like, all these kids have flight risk. They're going somewhere else in 4 years. And so they just want to learn, and they just want to be involved, and they can directly see where they might not see in compost, you know, how that waste removal, what the end product, where they can see that they take a porch off, or let's say the Episcopal Church is a tower, but they want to demolish their bell tower. And so could that material go to the school, and could the school turn that into benches somewhere? And so they can see the end result. So it's really neat. And I think that but I think it's, for us would be, I think it would be prudent for us not to think of them as like the solution for all things deconstruction, and more just think of them as like a great advocacy and learning environment for kids to flourish and see that they've got a great workshop there. Someone mentioned that they actually started a business individual that purchased some of the Point Lookout buildings, deconstructing them and looking to rebuild them on a different site. So he doesn't know where he's going to build them yet. I don't know if he's purchased them yet, but that I think is something. So I don't know if we have as a town, a question was asked by Allison, like they want ordinance changes. Do we want to change this or our demolition ordinance? And that part of the historic resources, I've been bringing it up to that. And what they've said at the meeting, the students and Danny, was that we're not ready for the ordinance yet. We want to create the support around in the community so that when we do implement ordinance and people are deconstructing things and that we have the scale, we can support that. I thought that was a wonderful answer.
Cool.
Questions, I mean, you know, in terms of deconstruction, and we are the oldest housing stock in the country, and a lot of lead issues.
Yeah, I don't want any high
There's
school kids
like
near
a
lead.
lot of, like, you know, as just not that's just a reality. So I like that they want to be sort of methodical, and they want to like work through the problems and then present kind of like a plan as to how the ordinance fits. But I love that, you know, because that's our future. So if they're willing to repurpose, reuse, recycle as part of conservation effort, right? Tools, it becomes like imbued. It's like, well, I can, what can I do with this? Or how can we use it differently? I don't like it like this anymore, but maybe I can use it like that. It becomes more normalized.
Mhm.
Or we
What starting to build
reduce the
things.
impact. So that's great.
They were like
Yeah.
building things to deconstruct later. So their prom set was like this castle thing. They built it out of other materials from somewhere else. And then but the way they built it, they learned to deconstructing tile so timely and hard to get all. So they built it in a way that was easy to disassemble. So really cool, a lot of engagement. They said the students are really signing up for this course. So, you know, it might be interesting to have a separate meeting just with us and school, and Samantha, you like lead us there. But it was really cool. It was really fun.
Good. Well, thank you for being our liaison and for checking in with this.
It
There's
was-
a lot of moving parts going on, so. it's good that
Absolutely.
somebody
Yeah.
has-
Can I have a Tree City question for the group? Because it wasn't totally clear to me what our follow-up is. It sounds like we're taking over responsibility for Tree City. Is that correct? Is that the idea?
It is.
Okay.
It will,
Um,
yes, it'll be decided between Allison and the Conservation Commission, who, if we self-select each year, or if she sort of wears the hat, and with the homestead, it funnels through, there's more discussion, but yes, and it is time for Nancy to pass the torch. She has been.
You know, that wasn't clear at first. I don't know what she was talking about. I mean, I knew she was.
Yeah, I didn't,
they were-
right. I didn't know what the ask was. But my question, if we're doing that, could I volunteer? I volunteer myself to, I've already drafted an email, but not sent it, to email the Tree City contact at the organization to find out what are the actual, if any annual recertification requirements, because I understand there's 4 steps, but that's like to become a Tree City. Just to get a little more clarity on that, because the yellow sheet doesn't say that, explain that. And then separately, there's a whole online access for Tree City, which I suspect she wasn't involved with, where your town's Tree City can get information online, but there's like a login. And so I wanted to ask, could I email and ask for that information, how we get logged in, and what requirements there are on an annual basis?
Yeah, let's have some email volley about that, but yeah, if you want to take that piece between you and Alice, make sure that, you know, there's some communication there, because ultimately it is essentially kind of part and parcel with the Conservation Commission. And there's been lots of conversation about this transfer of role, if you will, or duty.
Okay.
And Alice, self, and Dave have been part of it, and I think that we've tried, at least tried, and obviously failed somewhat, sorry, to say that the Tree City conversation, you know, is to share what's been going on, and that it is our time to take on. I think Dave's mentioned at meetings, like, you know, we're taking on, Allison's met with Nancy prior to tonight's meeting, so it's just, this was to kind of put us all in the
Got
loop, and Nancy has, by default and by design, they have, the Johnsons are, relatively very low tech to
Yeah.
almost tech free. And I
Yeah.
admire that. I actually wish I could live in that world, but I can't. So I digress, but,
Yeah.
so it is.
So I'll email Allison about it and ask what I can do. I'll email Allison.
Yeah, because it will expedite the process for the recertification on an annual basis.
I think there's a really high sense of urgency about this Arbor Day thing, because
I
it's,
think so.
yeah, that's what I heard
That
it say.
was-
There's a window in May, and if we don't
It's
do that,
Arbor
then
Day is-
everything else is
actually April 28th.
is it really?
So we have to have it. It wasn't, I don't think it was on the
It
exact day
shows
last
the
year.
date during the third full week of May. in the
Oh,
year.
perfect.
It wasn't, yeah, it wasn't.
It doesn't have to align, it does not have to align
Yeah,
with.
well, anyways, that seems
That
like,
would be great, because otherwise I'm gonna have a panic attack.
Yeah, I remember it being like not actually Arbor Day last year.
yeah,
But what I do remember was that I think there was like, who's our, like, political leader, like Vicky
Dodaro,
was there last year.
yeah.
There was actually, maybe there was a business that sponsored food, I believe, there was, or
Yeah.
someone, there was food.
Was it up at the?
They paid for it.
Freeze?
So it is, maybe we should do some subcommittee
Park Street, right.
for that or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and if you need help or whatever, just let, you know,
Okay.
I mean, there's,
Yeah.
yeah. I drove by and I said, "Hey, what's going on? This looks like fun."
All right, so
Anyway,
that's.
so-
Okay.
So, yeah, so.
Thank you.
Have to do it for the actual National Arbor Day, because I haven't even had time to read it, so, which makes it, manageable.
We're chatting Arbor Day and scheduling it for this year. Is that something that the committee should be taking a lead on, or yes?
Okay.
Yes, don't let me slow you down.
Okay,
Absolutely.
we're on the
Everyone's moving, yeah.
training.
I did just get a power cord though, right before my computer was about to die, so.
There's not much to say about the, I'm gonna move on to projects, so we are on like tight
Yeah.
timeline here. We'll have to circle back kind of in an email after, we, you know, so create a subcommittee for email, the Arbor Day.
Yep.
We'll-
I mean, the National Arbor Day makes a lot of sense. For some reason, we've done it in different.
You know, it makes a lot of sense, except that it puts us in a
It's in 4
pickle.
weeks.
It's literally 2 days after our next, meeting.
And several of us are traveling in the next month.
And we're both gonna be gone, and there's,
Oh, yeah,
I think
sounds
we could
like-
just actually
Yeah.
just kind
Oh, yeah.
of.
We could set the stone on
and
that.
Maybe we'll align it for 2024 if we know that it's where it is in the calendar and timeline.
Sure, yeah,
Don't.
So, moving on, just an update that I will be attending the community resilience training on April 6th. It'll actually be here, that's something that we've been talking about with it's the coastal communities and the Mid-Coast Planning Commission, and so they invited, a couple of town members from each town, somebody from Conscom, somebody from, if they have a planning board or Parks and Rec or some affiliate, and so I will keep you up to date on that. Just wanted to let you know it's gonna happen between this and the next meeting. So now we're on an outreach opportunity, which is our watershed sign.
I changed them to blue. the flowers.
I don't think you should keep busing.
I
It's
don't
been
think-
good for a week, it's gonna be good for several months.
No, I really just want us to like essentially vote, like.
Yeah,
like
I propose, I second, I vote.
So, okay, my next step then is to, and I've met with her, but I haven't chatted with her about this yet, is to meet with Miranda at Adventure Advertising.
Yes.
Is that, does that?
Well, actually, I think Dave is.
Oh, yeah, maybe Dave. takes it.
Okay, so basically just setting this
Give it to
date.
Give it to Dave and he'll take it over from there.
Okay,
We were just supposed to do the artwork and give him suggestions of places to put it.
okay, so let's just send it.
Yeah.
And you got the list.
Yeah, I wasn't clear where you want to do it on John Street, but that's what we talked about.
Okay, awesome. So the sign is done.
Good.
A physical property, something to
And what-
tangible to put out in the community.
Who was doing that plain Gunneduck sign? Dave?
Oh, just the plain one?
Oh, yeah, David, they're literally just the sort of standard
Yeah.
white reflective with the black
Okay.
road signs, and
Yeah.
he's gonna never
He's doing- okay,
set
so-
screen, and he'll just plug it along. So, well, that's exciting. We gotta make sure that when the first batch are printed, that we actually do give ourselves some publicity. The whole point is that
Yeah.
it's about outreach and awareness, and it will give us an opportunity to write a.
Sure. that'd be
What if we did,
Yeah.
what if we did like
Write
someone,
something since you've got all this extra time now, write it.
how would you,
That'll be my way of sneaking my way in through the side.
as chair of the committee, would you think it would be, would you be welcome to like, once we got this printed, like if you were to get like a photo? I don't know, with maybe Dave or Dave, like maybe like when we first plant and then use that as the press release as like a photo next to the sign or something like that. We just did it with the historic resources when they did plaques, long funeral home.
Yeah, it
And
was
they
in
got,
the brick schoolhouse.
yeah.
I saw it in the 10-day pilot.
Wasn't that bad? How is it?
It was great. The
Okay.
whole article was well written. It was Pat.
Yeah,
You were-
Pat's feeling and
I just read it this morning.
I was very underdressed. I was like, you don't want me in this photo. You guys say all the longer than the place.
So you're supposed to look.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know how to dress to go to a funeral home.
Right,
What do you think about that?
Well, I think the story was about the schoolhouse. And it
Right.
happened, the plaque ended up on the funeral home because that morphed into the funeral home.
Yeah, right.
But it was great. Nice.
Wonderful
article.
history. Anyway,
Very
sorry.
nice.
Awesome.
Pat wrote it, right?
I believe so.
Yeah,
I think so.
it was well written.
Boy,
So,
well,
maybe-
so the next thing on our list is the
Nice job.
non-coastal
Thanks.
conservation commission working group update. Bill, how do we encapsulate in a 1 minute or less, a lot of
You made the best.
enthusiasm and idea?
The way that I think you had the best, you synchronized, yeah, you basically synthesized the conversation into 3 words. It was too much water.
Thank you.
And that I think was the big, that to me, that's what I like, that's has stayed with me since then, so thank you. Because it was, but it was great because everyone related, it was St. George. Who was that?
Thomaston, yeah, so we have South Thomaston, Owl's Head, St. George, Tennis Harbor,
They all have their own.
Rockland,
Yeah.
most.
Yeah,
Well, Rockland, Rockport, and Camden have all met twice now over the last month. Most of all but 2 are newly reformed or brand new. 2 are long timers, which is actually Owl's Head and St. George, like as far as like no hiccups, no bumps. And we're really looking at ways of partnering, sharing resources, sharing information, sharing ideas, and one thing that we've talked about is doing a collective training or outreach. It's got to be fall or winter, but we'll talk about that later. On the topic of too much water and how we can do some training, because, we're all coming at it from different scales and different levels of expertise, all with sort of equal goals, but not necessarily, on an equal playing field. So we're looking at putting together a training / conference that will be put out to conscoms, and not just us, but like beyond, and then to professionals that would be working, within the scope of the context of too much water. It got a little stretched for a little while. We had to kind of rein it, Nat and I had to rein it back in a little bit. But largely because of enthusiasm or making connections, understanding how one thing connects with another, connects to another, but we've got to make sure we do it in a meaningful way. But I just think it's really nice that there's communication and that there's willingness, politically speaking, to work across, on partner on issues. So we'll keep you up to date at that.
St. George was the one that impressed me the most because their select board went to the Conservation Commission and said, are you interested to help us basically lead the effort in doing a study,
Long-term
a
study.
long-term study on how we can handle our vulnerabilities to sea level rise and storm surge. And they said, yes, we'd love to do that. And then they're actually going through that study now. And it seems like it's been funded by grants and also by the environmental.
Like the main state planning office.
Main state planning, so it's been something that's been fully funded, hasn't cost the taxpayer anything. And what the result of that will be, what they're hoping for is various options of scenarios of option A will take you to 2050, will cost you this. Option B will take you to 2100 and will cost you this. And then they felt it was imperative to do the study prior to doing any work. And I think that's the right way to go. Personally, I think that's the right way to go about it. And then there was also a conversation about, in certain of those geographic areas and towns, when water would rise, certain areas are actually become, you need a boat to actually, you can't evacuate. If there's a natural, so it actually becomes this emergency response. And so they actually felt like it's involving EMS was something as part of that conversation, because it becomes not just an environmental risk, but a human health risk. I don't know how you.
Life safety.
Safety risk, right?
Yeah.
And so,
California.
And again, that's a scalability thing and seeing
Right.
about what makes sense in terms of a half day, a whole day, and how long each sort of presentation, but.
So when we do these studies, there's lots of resources in Maine, right? The Department of DEP, the Marine Resources, all these, geology, have all these.
You said it was the St. George group that was doing that one?
yeah,
Do they
and Alice had
utilize
different.
those?
Alice
They
had
are,
one
yeah.
All right, so it's not
And the
like,
select board said no.
Hold on, guys.
this sounds terribly naive, but it's not like you're sitting there Googling things and trying to learn. I mean, you need to use professional resources to help.
It's definitely, my understanding was a professional.
Okay, I got it.
Third party
Yeah,
is good.
And a state or federal grant
Right.
combined.
Yeah,
with
okay, got it.
Regional and state.
And that
resources.
was driven by, and the whole thought was we need to get the select boards, the big thing was getting the select boards support. We
Right.
really need to get, advocacy across the town, all constituents to do the study. And St. George has actually started the select board. And then, but Alice had, I believe, went to the select board and they said no.
I didn't do that.
And so she felt like it would be a challenge for her to go back to the select board offering this type, so there's different kind of politics in each town. On how we should approach this ultimately the same issue.
You can see how you could coordinate this amongst conservation commissions and really leverage each other's expertise.
It was amazing.
Yeah, it's great.
That's not St. George group, but the ones they spoke at, they were at the state meetings and, they were thinking.
So the Knox County Hazard Mitigation Plan is due for renewal for updating. And if you look at the current version, it's basically like they collected information from each town, and you're right that it's the EMS people that mostly oversee that. And so, they identify a few areas of vulnerability, send it into the county, and they collate that basically. But it's one of the reasons that I was excited about you being on the Knox County Budget Committee is that a lot of this stuff really would be better done if it were at the county level rather than constantly being at the mercy of the evolving political spectrum in each of the towns. I mean, you're always going to have that at the county level too. You're always going to have that at the, at the local levels.
You get so much bigger bang for your buck and a much better understanding when you work in larger blocks like that. I mean, if you're looking at
Right.
anything from, habitat fish passage from that water standpoint versus, but same culvert, that's the huge volume of water is overflowing. and is wiping out, you know.
Right,
So
so like
that's-
increasing
that's-
the,
Road, you know, like there's a lot of ways to.
This study to be paid by the Knox County budget to do environmental for that.
I mean, potentially, I
Or
think we
maybe
should be
they're doing-
looking to, if there are appropriate partners like the Soil and Water Conservation District or something, or that makes a lot of sense if you can go for grants, maybe through an entity like that, and then get select board support for that if necessary. The county has historically been very, very resistant to putting any money into planning. And that has been largely due to the budget committee. And sometimes you only have 3 commissioners. And then you have a budget committee that actually has the power to override the commissioners, and that power has historically been used a lot of the time to try to like take $8,000 out of the budget here or there. In order, to feed, because they see it going up everywhere and they're like, I want to do my part to just like cut somewhere. And so that's what ends up happening. We've done like major lobbying a few years to try to get the county to fund like a planning department. They literally have like nothing. So that would just be my 2 cents, that seeing if there's a way, or like a little bit around some of the select board sometimes to do a more of a.
I get sworn in April 6th.
Not having a budget.
Yeah.
So for years.
Well,
Bob and
unless,
I've been
unless
like-
something, unless someone like, I guess says, you're a horrible person, we don't want you on it. I don't know. I don't
We
know.
had came in under a little bit of a different thing.
Yeah.
We have something people vote on. Want to make sure that
I think the committee has to, I don't know the whole process, I just. they
it's
told me to
supposed to be
show up,
something
so I
that
showed
people
up.
vote on, in 4-year terms. But
Rest of it.
our
Yeah.
person from Camden resigned early.
Oh, so it's like-
But-
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay, so but
So,
Anyway.
okay, so I
Sorry.
think that we should just know that there's a lot of like momentum and a lot of synergy and a lot of collective buy-in to work collaboratively in the Knox County coastal community. So I think that's a real win-win, and there's certainly opportunity, I could say, to do something else. We are right on time, so I would like to quickly just note that we received resignation from Brian Robinson. It's just not really working for him in terms of.
can I say something quickly about that? I did talk to Brian.
You did, because I haven't called him yet.
So I think it was kind of him to offer that, but I encouraged him to hold off on doing that, because he could, first of all, we don't necessarily know when a new committee member could be appointed. And that, so until we can, we know when that's gonna get on the agenda or could get on the agenda, and that doesn't always happen easily, that he can still, there's value in having him as a quote unquote voting member, since he's been approved, and that he can contribute
Through volunteer and other efforts.
in other ways, and weigh in even when he's not able to attend the meetings. But just since I can't guarantee getting anything else on the agenda quickly to get some.
Okay.
He and I
then,
technically expire this year. When do those are there? I would like to do it again, and I expire this year. So how does that work? Timing wise?
It's gonna,
I think it's September. I think it's.
Okay.
I mean, I'll just target, it depends on what the select board feels like doing sometimes, or what else is on the agenda, or
Yeah.
sometimes it happens right after the election.
Mm,
Sometimes it doesn't.
Okay.
That's, yeah. I mean, sometimes it makes sense sometimes to wait a little bit, for new select board members, and then they don't know anybody, and then we're appointing committee members sometimes before, anybody gets their feet, but
Got it.
there's different
So it's
reasons.
not soon.
Yeah, don't resign until you get appointed.
Can't get rid of me.
Conversations for wild ones and the pesticides or
Totally.
postpone it to the April meeting.
Yeah.
Honestly, both of those have some discussion involved, not necessarily bad, not necessarily good. There's gonna be, a lot of discussion, I think, around the role we do or don't want to play with pesticides, certainly. And
I
then,
did a lot.
and I would like to do, yeah, and then Wild Ones, I think is a great, partner for things to come, that I don't think needs to be talked about today. That's fair.
Sounds good.
Okay, so I, unless otherwise stated, will officially call the meeting to close at 2:04 PM. Thank you for your extra time and patience
Thank you.
around through this.
The last time.
You know, how I mentioned that I reached out to, Coach Nolan.